Jesus made the disciples get into the boats and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. And later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. And shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. And when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, for it is I, do not be afraid." "And Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So I was giving you about 10 minutes to talk about this, to try and say something on this. And there's quite a lot that you could talk about. So I'm going to try and focus just on Peter's perspective and so imagine being Peter in this scenario and think about his mindset and so on. So you're just thinking about what he might be thinking about as Jesus tells him to get in the boat. I think, first of all, he'd be pretty tired. It's been a long day. It's evening time now. He's been performing miracles with Jesus during the day. And I'm probably feeling quite emotional as well because they buried, I think, John the Baptist a few days earlier and had come with Jesus to this desolate place to grieve and hadn't been able to because the multitudes had descended on them, sort of demanding miracles and teachings and wanting to be with Jesus. And Jesus had performed such amazing miracles that the people wanted to make him king there and then. But Jesus didn't want to because he wasn't interested in being an earthly king. So he dismissed them and he dismissed the disciples. So Peter, told to get in the boat, probably feeling tired, emotionally, he's been a bit of a roller coaster and probably quite upset at being separated from his Lord, because whatever you say about Peter, like he's quite emotional, he's quite impetuous, but he really loves Jesus so much. I think that's undeniable. You can see it throughout the Bible, but some of the examples that jump out to me is in John 6 when Jesus is doing the talk on the bread of life, and it's quite a difficult sermon, and I think some of the disciples are turning away from Jesus at that point because they don't understand about eating his flesh and drinking his blood. And Jesus turns to Peter and says, "What are you going to do? Are you going to leave me as well?" And Peter says, "Of course not. You are the Holy One. You have the answers. I'm never going to leave you." And in John 13, I think Peter says he'll even follow Jesus into death. He'll follow him everywhere. So he loves Jesus. He won't want to be separated from him, but he's obedient. He gets into the boat and he starts rowing. And they seem to be making okay progress to begin with. I think it says it's still evening time when they start to encounter some resistance. So this is probably, I think they call it the first watch of the night. So maybe sometime between 6 and 9 p.m. They segment it into these watches of the night, 6 to 9 being the first, 9 to 12, 12 to 3, and then the last watch of the night, 3 to 6 in the morning. So this would have been about the maybe 9 p.m., something like this in my understanding of it. And I think it's at this point that I probably would have turned back and gone, sure. I think I would have been thinking, I'm tired, it's dark, there's a storm, it's starting to rain, there's the winds pushing against me, this is really hard work, this isn't what Jesus would have meant, it's not what he intended for me to be suffering in this way, so let's just go back, have some leftover bread on the shore with Jesus, we can hang out and talk about the day, and then all head out in the morning. That would have been a much better plan in my mind. And that's probably what I would have done. But Peter, much more faith than me, and he ploughed on in the dark with the other disciples, rowing into the wind for what seems like a minimum of 6 hours. And I was trying to get my head around this because it seems like Jesus doesn't come to them until, I think it says the fourth watch of the night, so sometime between 3 and 6 in the morning. And it couldn't have been more than, say, 9 p.m. when the wind started to turn against them. So this period of real battling against the current, against the tide, was for 6 hours at least. And they made almost no progress. I think it said they were maybe 3 miles from shore when Jesus encountered them. And it's only 6 miles wide, the Sea of Galilee at the widest point. So they'd only got 3 miles in what was probably 8 or 9 hours of rowing, which just didn't really make sense to me. I was like, how can that be? How can they be going so slowly. And so I had a quick look on Google, as you do, and there's some people that have done some research on seafaring in Jesus' time, and they said that boat speed was highly dependent upon the wind strength and direction. And in fact, the square-rigged sailing vessels of the time would find it difficult to make any headway to windward, which I think means into the wind, even potentially going backwards. And that just really struck a chord with me. I thought, yeah, how many times have I felt maybe called into something by Jesus or by God, and really tried to do it and put some energy into it and felt like I'm really pushing into it, but seeing no fruit, seeing no rewards, not even necessarily feeling like God is in it anymore, because I just can't see anything coming from it. And it's the temptation to give up is huge, I think, and to sort of turn away and say, I must have just made it up. I shouldn't be doing this. There's no point. But Peter has more faith, and he plowed on for 6 hours into the night. And Jesus, of course, did come, and he came just before the dawn. And I think that expression, it's darkest before the dawn, probably makes sense. You can imagine he must have been barely able to row at this stage, absolutely exhausted, probably at the point of just giving up. And then he hears one of the other disciples say, there's something, is it a ghost? They can't quite make it out. There's obviously a storm around them, so it's hard to see, it's hard to hear. But Jesus says, do not fear, for it is I. And you can almost feel the immediate relief within Peter. He straight away says, Jesus, if it is you, then command me to come to you on the water. And it just is such a crazy thing to say. This is, like I say, pitch black dark, storm all around you, the waves sort of lapping over the boat, and he wants to step out into the water. He's asking to go into the storm, which just seems like suicide. That's how people drown. But that's Peter, and that's his mindset is, I need to be with Jesus. His love, he has this passionate love for Jesus that seems to overwhelm everything else, overwhelm his sense of self-preservation, overwhelm his rational mind, his common sense. He just has this, it feels to me, this real need above everything else, just to be with his Lord. And as actually I was preparing for this, and I realized this isn't actually the only time that Peter jumps out of a boat for Jesus. If you go to John 21, I think after Jesus comes back to the disciples once he's been crucified, one of the other disciples on a boat with Peter says he thinks he can see Jesus on shore. And Peter doesn't wait for verification. He doesn't wait to look and see if it is Jesus. He just jumps off the boat and starts swimming to shore to be with Jesus in John 21. So this is Peter's mindset. He just wants to be with Jesus. He wants to be with his master, and he's willing to take any risk, take any cost to do so. And of course, he steps out of the boat and he does walk on water, which is incredible. But unsurprisingly, he's a little bit distracted by the storm. There is a storm. He's walking on water, waves all around him, and he looks away from Jesus just for a moment and starts falling. And again, I think about what I would do at this point, and I would be thinking, okay, I've tried this crazy thing. I've stepped out in faith. Now I'm drowning in a storm. I'm going to rely on like these two arms to get me back in the boat, swim as fast as I can into the boat. And I know that I can swim. I know that I can probably do that by myself. But he obviously he has more faith than me again. And he calls out for Jesus, despite having sunk into this storm. He still calls out for Jesus, and Jesus, of course, again comes to save him. So a real amazing display of faith to me. I think it's almost amusing. Jesus chastises him, rebukes him for his lack of faith, when I think it's one of those amazing displays of faith in the Bible. At least I found it quite inspiring. And it made me think of a story of my own. It's not in any way comparable, but just some personal experience that it reminded me of. So as Phil was saying just in that video earlier, I think one of the great things that's come out of lockdown, out of COVID-19, has been this time that people have to reflect and to pray and to spend time with God. And I read the Bible sales went up 55% in the UK in April, which is amazing. So I was like some of these people, trying to pray more, trying to read the Bible more during lockdown. And I came across fasting in the Bible. It just stuck out to me for some reason. I never really thought about it. It seemed like something that was Old Testament, but then I was reading about it in Matthew 5, and I was reading about it in Acts, and I started praying, should I be thinking about this? Should I be doing fasting? And I felt like I should give it a go. Nothing hardcore, no liquid fasts. I love food, just a little bit of fasting here and there. pretty amateur stuff. But then I was listening to another sermon online, and it said that anything you learn as a Christian in your walk, it's kind of your responsibility to share with other Christians and provide encouragement. So I was praying about this again. Like, have I learned anything? I thought, well, I have learned that fasting actually is quite helpful. So I was like, what should I do with this, God? Who should I tell? And I felt him tell me to try and put together a YouTube video on fasting and the benefits of fasting as a Christian, which I thought was a bit strange because I don't have a YouTube channel. I didn't even have a video camera, but at the time, but I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I put together a very average, very amateur video on fasting, which I can't imagine would particularly have blessed anyone, but I did it. And I put it on the internet. And for me, I think that was me stepping out of my boat. You know, my boat was my anonymity as a Christian. And I was petrified that somebody from work would see this video and think of me suddenly as some sort of religious fanatic. And suddenly everything would change, the way people would look at me would change. And so, yeah, I felt insecure stepping out of that. But I did it. And I waited for whatever to happen. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but nothing did happen. You know, the next day, 0 views, day 2, 0 views, day 3, 0 views. And I'll be honest, I was quite relieved. I thought, you know, at least no one's seen this debacle, and I can kind of just relax in my anonymity. But, you know, I thought about it, I was like, okay, I've done it. I should probably try and make it so that people can see it. So I tried to learn about the algorithm on YouTube, how they order the videos. I put some tags on, if this means anything to anyone, and I tried to tweak it a little bit so that people could actually find it if they were looking for it. And then suddenly some people did see the video, and suddenly there were a few views. And then there was a comment, it comes a little bing on my computer, there's a comment, somebody actually engaging with the content. It was quite exciting. So I clicked on it and it said something along the lines of, I hope you and all the other Christians do fast and then you die of hunger so that I won't have to watch these videos again. And my heart just kind of sunk. And I thought, oh no, this is like a tiny bit of resistance, a tiny little minuscule social media storm, but it was enough for me to delete the video, take it down instantly. You know, I didn't keep my eyes on Jesus. I didn't keep my eyes on God. I didn't think about why I was doing this in the first place. Like, what was the point of doing this? It wasn't for the benefit of this random person who was making this comment. But I looked at the storm. I looked at the difficulty surrounding me, and I reacted on that. And I repent of that. And I hope that God will lead me into other things, and I'll have more faith to sort of take it further next time. But yeah, I really found this passage encouraging and just made me think that, you know, if we have the faith and the determination to listen to God and to see what we think he's leading us into through to the end, even if it feels at times like he's not in it, that we can't hear his presence or feel his presence, we feel like we're making no progress. It may even feel like we're going backwards at times. If we keep going and keep going, God will show up, and then amazing things can happen. I'm not saying we're going to walk on water, but, you know, we'll have adventures. We may be able to, you know, do things that we hadn't expected, meet things that we have, people we hadn't seen. And that's my hope. And that's what I'm going to try and take from this passage into my walk as a Christian. That was it.